Hello, everybody. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but Happy New Year. If you are watching the video version of this and you are thinking, why the fuck are Monica's tits out and she has a full face of makeup on and she's in a ridiculously sparkly dress, it's actually not for the episode, but I felt like it was very fitting because it's very New Year's Eve vibe. Where I'm actually, at the time of filming this, we're about to have our Christmas party and we're leaving to Australia like in a day's time. And so it was like, I have to record this episode now or it's never going to get done. And of course I had no idea what to wear. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to put my fucking dress on for the Christmas party tonight. And that's going to be my outfit for the podcast. So here we are, fully dressed up, the glam and hair curled. I mean, that's kind of usual, but most importantly, I have a dress that's fully hugging the bump. So you can't see the bump. I mean, you can kind of see the bump because you can see that I'm like a bit, I guess, like thicker or wider or whatever you want to call it in my stomach area. My boobs are a lot bigger and I'm in my sparkly dress. Anyway, so today's episode, my intention is I really wanted to just come on and set you guys up for massive success this year. And I didn't want to walk through a kind of generic, because we did that. We did a little bit more like, here's a reflection episode in December. So if you haven't listened to that, you can go back and listen to that. Instead, I actually wanted to really set you up for doing less, not more. And so in today's episode, we're going to talk about like two things. I'm going to keep it short and sweet so that it's just like punchy and to the point as well. And that's really going to be an intention for me this year. It obviously makes sense. I'm becoming a mum, so I'm really focusing myself on quality versus quantity as well. But yeah, so firstly, I'm going to talk about what you guys can be doing to focus on reducing your overwhelm and your overconsumption this year. Because we know that when we're in this kind of state of overconsumption, it can also put us into a state of inaction because we are just consuming too much and then we're actually overwhelmed. And then what I want to talk about is how you can really be a lover, not a mother in 2025. But how you can be a lover, not a mother, even if you're a woman that likes to lead. We got this amazing question sent in. And Olivia was like, can you jam on this on the podcast? Because I feel like this would really hit home for a lot of women. So this lady was asking in regards to joining her year, which by the way, if you haven't joined her year already yet, I highly recommend that you do so. We are closing doors on January 23rd. And this is the only intake for you joining for the whole of 2025 this year. And then you will have to wait until the end of the year. And I've also mentioned before, I'm going to mention it again. This is the only time her year will ever be this price. The value that you get for the cost of it is absolutely insane. And that's why so many people have been like, this is an absolute no-brainer. Even for a $5,000 investment, it's an absolute no-brainer. I know so many of us are craving community. We're craving a village. We're craving this feeling of women that are fully cheering us on for what we want to create in our lives without judgment, without questioning us, without projecting their limiting beliefs. And I've been really intentional with this space of making sure the women that are joining are the kinds of women that you want to surround yourself with, right? They've done the healing work, they've done that trauma work, and they're ready for the next step. So this isn't kind of a place of like victimhood or dumping or anything like that. We can obviously sometimes need a vent, we're human, but it's really this space for the woman that wants to get herself to the next level. She's already at a higher level than what she was 2 years ago, but she really wants to break that glass ceiling and get to the next level. And she's deeply craving in-person and community-focused work versus just single focused work on the sofa alone. We all know, or maybe you don't know, but I did an episode on this towards the end of last year as well. Just by getting in the room, so being in these community environments, the inspiration that comes can then actually help you to be guided with intuitively knowing the next action step. That action would never have come if you were not inspired because of the environment that you were in. So getting yourself in the room in 2025, I highly recommend. Again, it's kind of on that theme of like, honestly, quality over quantity. Rather than just consume, focus on consuming really high quality, not just content, but also be in high quality spaces, because you're actually going to get more out of it than having to go to like a million different events to get the same result. Okay. So let's dive in on this topic of reducing overwhelm for 2025. So the team was over, and sorry if I'm like a little bit sniffly, something that has been happening to me with pregnancy, and I didn't realize this could happen with pregnancy, is like you're just permanently sniffly and congested because of all of the blood vessels like constricting and dilating or something or other in your nose. And so you then just like have a bit of a runny nose all the time. So if I sniffle a few times, I'll really try not to. I know it's disgusting. Maybe we'll get it edited out. But if it's like impossible to edit out, then just sorry in advance. Okay, so something I was talking to my team about when they were here in Atlanta at our house, we were doing a little in-person day at the beginning of December, is I just randomly said to them, I was like, guys, do you listen to podcasts anymore? And they were like, honestly, like Olivia was like, yeah, but like less. And the others were like, no. And why I asked this is because I had recently gone on a walk where I opened up my podcast app and I was so overwhelmed by how many, not just podcasts there were, because like I have the ones I'm subscribed to, but how many episodes I was behind on, right? Where I would open up someone's podcast and I'm like, how are there 10 episodes? Like, I feel like it's been 2 weeks since I last opened, their podcast, and all of a sudden there are all these episodes. And then we go into that state of like, I don't even know which one to start with. And I have a limited amount of time on this walk. And so I just go into then inaction, right? And anybody does. We're human of like this state of overwhelm. So then we just actually do nothing instead of doing something. So it got us into this conversation, which we were already kind of talking about, and really focusing on quality over quantity next year. Not just for me in terms of my output of content. You guys know that I put out a lot of content. So not just in me with my output of content, but actually more so with you guys. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm putting out all of this content if you're not even able to fucking consume it. And I had been thinking about lately how people are really leaning more towards long-term content. We're seeing a bit of a rise in like even people using YouTube more and appreciating that long-form content. Blogs are coming back. Pinterest is really being used. I mean, it's never not being used, but I feel like Pinterest is getting more of a focus again because like you're not just getting this kind of dopamine high and then dropping off. You're not inundated with this just like information. And so people are starting to actually be really attracted to that, where I think a lot of us are really realizing the damaging effects also of just like being glued to our phone all the time and feeling like if I'm not glued to my phone, I'm going to miss this person. I'm going to miss something from this person's content that I really, really like. So anyway, it got us thinking of how can we ensure that next year we are not contributing to your overwhelm? How can we ensure that we're not contributing to your overwhelm and your overconsumption, but then in action? And I was thinking about it in terms of like, I have so much on next year, or this year, I guess, by the time you're getting this, not just in terms of like, oh, I'm becoming a mom, but the book is coming out and then obviously everything that comes from that. And I'm still running my programs and we have some travel on the agenda and all of that kind of stuff. And so I was thinking about how much I have on and how like I also need to be focused on quality over quantity so that I'm delivering you guys the best quality content and the best quality work. And so that I'm also going to make sure next year with everything that I have going on that I'm obviously not going to burn myself out. And I would never I would never let myself burn out. I don't know why that was struggling to come out. I don't know. I would never let myself burn out, but I was just more like really thinking ahead of how I'm not just supporting me, but also supporting you guys. So with that, one of the things that we are actually doing, so one of the things that I'm doing, but also the team, is we are dropping down the amount of podcasts that we're giving you. Now, I say this, and this is really hard for me. This was kind of hard for me to even be like, yep, let's fucking do it, because I have a lot to say, as you guys know. I am never short of words, and I truly love giving. And I feel like this is where a lot of people can get trapped because they're not trying to overwhelm their audience. They're not trying to give it, add to the overconsumption, but their love for what they do and what they're teaching, it just naturally can kind of overwhelm some people. And so anyway, long story short, we are going to be dropping down to about 2 episodes a month. Sometimes there will be 3, especially when I have a lot to say or when we have a guest on the podcast and then I also want to drop into other episodes as well. But the reason why we're doing this is because we want to make sure, and I really want to make sure that with all the time that we spend on each episode, planning the episode, me sitting down and recording the episode getting edited, then the little clips being made for social media, the description being made. Like there's so much that goes into every single episode. We want to make sure that you guys are actually listening to the episode. And if you're just getting overwhelmed because you open up your app and there's like 10 new episodes and you're not listening to them, here am I thinking, oh, let me give more, let me give more, let me give more. But you guys can't even consume it, right? And so we are dropping down to about 2 a month. Like I said, sometimes there will be 3. And I really hope that this encourages you and invites you to see where else you are leaning into overconsumption, or you're getting overwhelmed because there's just too much being thrown at you. And maybe that just means that instead of sitting there and when you're opening someone's podcast and scrolling through and being like, which episode to listen to, you just decide, you just listen to the latest one. And like, that's a little rule that you make for yourself, for example, or you just like close your eyes and click the one that you want, like click the one that feels right. And then that's just what you do. So you could obviously develop those little rules within yourself if you feel like you really are starting to get overwhelmed and going to that overconsumption. Because I even tell my certification students, when we have our breaks between terms, I actually say to them, you are not to study. You are not to study like the cert material, but you are not to like listen to my podcast, listen to other podcasts, like do not watch a bunch of documentaries, read a bunch of books. And I say this because I'm like, your brain needs time to actually digest everything you've learnt. Seriously. That's why sometimes when people are like, okay, I finished this program, Monica, now I want to go to the next one. Which one do I do? I'm like, no, go and live. Like go and actually integrate and absorb everything that you've learned so far. And so even between, like I take clients for one-on-one clients, I take them every 2 weeks, except for the first 2 weeks. The first 2 sessions we do back to back. We do 1 week and then about 7 days later, the next session. But otherwise it's every 2 weeks. And the reason why I do that is the same thing as like, we have so much going on in our lives. We really need to acknowledge that. So how can we give ourselves more space to absorb what we are learning versus feeling like we are chasing our tail over and over and over again? And I'm really vowing to myself before baby comes to really stop chasing my tail. I feel like I was given a gift in trimester 1, if you will, even though I was, tired and not fully feeling like myself and I, all that kind of good stuff. It was also this forced surrender that allowed me to see like everything is still fine. And of course I know like everything is still fine if I'm like if I'm only doing my clients during the day and I'm not doing a bunch of admin and I'm not getting ahead, but to actually see it was really nice. And I was like forced into having to see that essentially. And so I'm also working to set myself up for before postpartum. Right. And so I'm inviting you guys to do the same in the sense of like, we as humans are becoming so exhausted, not even because like we're working too hard and we're doing too much, but we are consuming too much. We are putting too much in our mind and we are not having enough blank space or white space or whatever you want to call it to just let it soak into us. And so if I'm trying to help you guys to be in your feminine, I also need to help reduce your overwhelm so that you can actually soften and be in your feminine and not be in your head and stressed and anxious and all of that kind of stuff. So my encouragement to you, especially if you're a new listener and you're like, what? I want an episode every single week. I have talked about every possible fucking thing there is to talk about. And we have an amazing podcast directory. And hopefully at the time this drops, you'll actually have the updated version. For about 1.5 years, maybe even 2 years. We've been working on developing this really incredible podcast directory. The user experience, the interface is just like off the charts. It's been like fully coded, a lot of back end work. But anyway, now there is this like insane podcast directory. Hopefully it's dropped by now. If not, it'll drop in like the next month. Where any podcast that you're trying to get to, you don't need to scroll through the app and like that doesn't help you. I wish there was like basically this is going to allow you to like search within the podcast, right? And so all you have to do is go on the website, go to the podcast directory. And whether you go by topic or whether you want to search, like whether you want to type in a word, I recommend going more by topic. You'll then be able to see the podcast that you need to start with and the podcast to go back to. So even if you're an avid listener and you're like, you've listened to every single episode, okay, I'm guaranteeing you right now, you do not remember anything from the episode that you listened to 4 months ago. You could not tell me anything from that episode. So why I'm saying this is I'm like, go back and re-listen. That's what I want you to do. If you want to listen to a podcast on those in between weeks of mine where I'm not posting a podcast, that is your invitation to go back and re-listen to something quote unquote old. We have this tendency these days to think that old isn't as good, but actually old is just as good. I've had so many clients that actually will say, hey, is it possible to get access to some of your older videos in this program? It's really expansive to just see how far you've come and see how you talked about things like, 5 years ago. And why I say this is because that version of me 5 years ago, I mean, she had to exist for me to get here. You want to listen to the episodes from 5 years ago, because that version of you 5 years ago, that version of me 5 years ago, she was required in order for me to be this version. It's actually, you will almost get more information sometimes from my older content because I did it, like I know things so well now. It's so integrated into me that, when you know a concept so well that you actually forget to like talk about the basics, like you know it, like you just forget, like you forget that people don't know these really simple things. So that's more where I'm at now. And that's why I actually purposely will not re-record the pre-recorded modules that you get when you sign up to Queen Alchemy in the portal. I won't re-record them. And the reason why is because I know I will never be able to do as good of a job as what I did back then. The quality, maybe the lighting is going to be better now and I look different now and there's a prettier background now, but you're not buying Queen Alchemy, for example, for the fucking background or how I look. You're buying it for the content in there to change your life. And I know the content from 4, 5, 6 years ago is actually going to do you more because I was in a place back then where it's how do I explain this to you? It's almost like I was the gap between where you are in your life and where I was 5 years ago is closer than where you are right now and where I am right now. That's why sometimes people can feel like the people they aspire, that they look up to, they feel so out of reach. And it's okay, maybe my current version feels out of reach, but the version of me 5 years ago, that might not feel out of reach for you. So obviously, depending where in your journey you are, this is obviously going to land differently. But nonetheless, there is a nugget for every single one of you in some of those older episodes. So make sure you go back and actually listen to that stuff. I love going back. I actually find that when I go back, in old episodes in people's podcasts, I learn more than now. And I think that is because we as creators and as podcasters, we also are overwhelmed and exhausted. And it's we feel like we've said things so many times that we no longer say them anymore. Right. And so our podcast episodes, for example, our information, the quality isn't as there. We're producing a ton, but the quality isn't what it was 5 years ago in terms of what's actually in the episode and the nuggets. So go back and listen to those old ones for me. Okay. Friends, I am so excited to share with you that I have another one of my juicy, wet knickers, panty dropping masterclasses. You guys, if you haven't been to one of my masterclasses before, you can actually head to the Masterclass Vault and you can watch one of the previous ones. The title of it is Becoming Her in 2025. And we're going to be going into the 7 pillars that are essential for you to become her in 2025 and to create the life of your dreams. So what we are going to be covering in the masterclass is what it means to actually quote unquote become her, how feminine leadership is paramount for easy manifestation, the 7 pillars, like I said before. We're going to be doing a little life audit so that you can figure out where you're holding yourself back and not take that. I'm going to break down what embodied manifestation is and how it will drastically change the way that you magnetize your dream life. We're going to have a live Q&A and there's going to be so much more. And it is all happening very shortly. So if you don't have your name down on the list, you absolutely need to, so you do not miss out. This will be a limited time masterclass. And I am fucking jazzed about it because shit's just getting better and fucking better. So anyway, let's jump back into the episode. I will see you guys in this masterclass. Okay, so moving on to the second part of the episode, which really is such an amazing question that's been sent in. And it's about this whole concept of what if I want him to lead? I want to be the lover, not the mother. But I also am somebody that loves to lead. I love to plan. I love to be the one booking the trips. I love to be organizing. I love to be directing. I really like to be doing those things. And that's something that I genuinely enjoy. And I love this question because I actually was speaking at an event the other month, and somebody asked a really similar question. Now, obviously for her, and really for both these people, I'm like, I don't fully know the work that you've done. So I'm going to give a pretty comprehensive answer in terms of I'm kind of going to give both sides to it. And as usual, like, be discerning with what I'm sharing, and also remember that, like, the nuances exist and context matters. Okay. So firstly, her question was, asking what I just said, and basically just to follow on, she was like, I don't want a future partner of mine to feel emasculated or useless because I'm the one doing the organizing of everything. And I'm the one like making plans and, planning the trip and all that kind of stuff. But I genuinely enjoy that. So here's my thing. There's two sides to this. One, if you genuinely enjoy that, and that actually brings you so much joy in your life, and it makes you feel magnetic, and it actually makes you feel feminine, like you feel in your body, you feel creative, you feel in flow, then express that part of your personality and honor that maybe there are times when you don't want to be doing that. And that would be then where you let him lead, or where you communicate with him. Like, I'd love to plan this trip, but then I want you to be the one driving the car everywhere, right? Or, I'm gonna, I like to plan what's happening each week in the house, but you really like him to lock up and him to kind of make any of those final decisions, for example. You can kind of figure out those nuances of where it makes sense for yourself. The bottom line is like, I did an episode on this earlier last year, and I highly recommend listening to it. Basically, it was about, it was the episode, okay, I'll leave you the link below in the description. It was the episode about like, essentially like a label's fucking you up, and where, Olivia, if you know the one I'm talking about, it's like where people need to like stop obsessing about the feminine and masculine. So we'll link that episode below because I can't remember the name of it, but what I'm noticing in the industry is that there is a lack of awareness around how trauma can influence us being in our feminine and us being in our masculine. And as a result, people just very much put you in the box of either feminine or masculine, or put certain behaviors in this box of like feminine or masculine. But I don't like doing that because we're all different. And so you might think, oh, this is feminine, this is masculine. But actually, this is like so important that we all understand this. What is feminine is what feels in alignment for you, what makes you feel like you're out of your head, you're in your body, you're in your creative flow, you feel magnetic. It's just like, yes, like you feel turned on. That is you being in your feminine. And so for one person, it is like passenger princess. I don't want to plan a single thing. But for another person, sorry, choked on my own spit. For another person, I like totally ruined that vibe. For another person, they feel that magnetism when they've planned the trips and they've been researching where to stay and what to do and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, there's nuances, right? They might love being the passenger princess when they're on the trip, but they want to plan the trip firstly and then give it to their man. And he's going to then actually be executing on maybe the booking of it, or the driving around of it, and the checking in in hotels and all of that kind of stuff. So when you are in your feminine, ladies, you feel turned on, you feel in alignment, you feel magnetic. It is not about putting yourself in another box of this is feminine, this is masculine. If you are doing something because you think, oh, this is feminine, but you're not enjoying it and it doesn't feel good in your body, that's then not feminine at all. Okay. So that's a really important thing to say. But a caveat to that is, and this is where the trauma piece comes in, it is also important to understand that for a lot of people, but maybe not you, so hence I'm like, nuances exist. For a lot of people, a lot of women, I should say, they only feel safe when they are in control, when they are the one planning, when they are the one leading. And so the reason why I'm saying this is because for some people, they tell themselves, I love planning. I love being in the one leading. I love being the one organizing the house. I love doing the budgeting. I love doing this. But in reality, they don't love it. They just can't let go of control. Now, only you know that answer. And so I share this, and you just need to be really honest with yourself of which one am I? Is it because I love doing the budgeting and I love doing the finances, and that's just like where my talent lies? Or is it you're like, I don't trust him to do the money, right? And the budget one is a good example because I have had women ask me in regards to like, well, what if I'm just better at, let me just take some water, hold on. I have had women asking me, well, what if I'm just better at finances, for example? What if I'm just better at the budgeting? My answer is twofold. Is there space for him to learn? Do you want him to actually get good at the budgeting? And if the answer is yes, okay, can you teach him so he can actually do it? Because I don't want you to resent him in 10 years' time because you're only doing it because you're better, but you don't actually want to. Now, we also have to remember there's plenty of things in life we don't want to do, but just as an example, I'm just saying this. Or is it like, no, I love doing the budgeting. I'm good at it. Like it's how my brain works. Like maybe you're an accountant or maybe you're a financial planner and it's just the way that your brain works, right? Again, like we don't want to be pigeonholing ourselves and thinking just the way, like don't think the way that Hal leads me is feminine and masculine. Don't necessarily think that because there's also nothing more delicious as a woman when you can just sit on the sofa and receive and a man's cooking for you. But I'm the one cooking every night. Hal's not really a great cook and he hates cooking, right? And so don't think there are certain things that have to be feminine and have to be masculine. It is so much more about the way in which you do things and how things actually feel. And this is why feminine leadership is so important. This is why I made my program Her, that's now her year for this year. So get in if you haven't already, because god damn, is this program just so fucking juicy. It's why I made this because you know, we are not in this kind of just simple world anymore of like women are the housewives and the mums and the men go out to work. Things are very complicated and very nuanced. And what I really pride myself on with my work is actually taking on board all of those complexities and you know, all of the individualities of us and all of the nuances of the world. I am not black and white. I am not this is feminine, this is masculine. It's not serving anybody. What you do want to make sure is that you are thinking about like, am I leading from a place of I don't feel safe to let go of control? Or am I leading from my heart? Am I leading from my body? Am I leading because this just feels natural to me and this just feels good? So the feminine leadership piece is like the overarching theme of all of Her, and the theme that I think a lot of us really need to sink our teeth into a little bit more, because we can be leaders and we often are leaders in the home, but we need to be doing it in a way where we are leading as the lover towards our husband, not the mother. We can lead our children as mothers, but we don't want to be leading our husbands as mothers. And very often we just get into this trap of the way that we lead is via like dominance and bossing, and it's my way is the only right way, and I know what's best. And essentially it's an undercurrent of mistrust. You essentially feel like you don't trust them. They feel that though. It's emasculating towards them. And then, of course, you have that flow-on effect of him then not leading you and not showing up. And then we get that push and pull situation of like, you want him to do more, but then you want to have the reins over these things. And then you emasculate him when he's trying to lead. And I'm not saying that the person dropping this question is necessarily doing this at all. What I'm wanting to really articulate is I would classify myself as a natural born leader. I was the girl in school that led every group assignment, fucking hated them, led every group assignment. I obviously run my own business. Like I've always been a natural born leader. I was the girl in school that loved the oral presentations. Like, yes, get me up on stage. I am dressed up. I am ready to go. I loved public speaking. I loved like organizing people. I loved bringing people together. I loved planning. I loved planning. And I still love planning. But I like planning in the areas that I like planning, and I don't like planning in the areas that I don't like planning. So I love planning out my business things when it comes to marketing and launches and programs and ideas and all those creative things. Like I am in my body, I'm in my flow, I'm trusting my intuition, like I'm really in my feminine energy. But then when it comes to planning a trip, like a holiday, too much. I actually absolutely suck at it. The one time Hal let me choose a hotel when you were staying in the Italian Dolomites, I chose the one furthest away from any airport. And it was a whole nightmare. But it was beautiful to stay out, but it was a nightmare. And after that time, he was like, never again are you allowed to choose a hotel. And he was joking about it, but like I'm serious. Like I don't want to choose a hotel because I don't look for the things that he looks for. He looks for things that are actually important. That's just how his brain works. He's logistical. Whereas, you know what I look for? What has the best vibe? I don't think about where's the nearest airport and can we actually fly into that airport? Is it logistically, a good idea to fly into that airport? Is there like what like car hire providers do they have? Like I don't think about those things. And so it is just important to really sink into honestly thinking with yourself, what do I want to lead? Because it really turns me on. And then what don't I want to lead? And when you're leading those things, there still needs to be collaboration and room for discussion. Because just like if he was leading something, you would want to be able to share your thoughts and your opinions and not feel like you just have to go along with it, even if you don't want to, right? Sometimes women forget that, right? Of like, they're also allowed to give their opinion, just like we want to give our opinion. So let's let them also give their opinion. So I hope that helps with that answer. Like just to really remember, there is no black and white answer. I mean, to some people there is about what is technically feminine and what is technically masculine. But when we get into like modern day living, I don't think there is. What's technically feminine, it's creativity and flow and nurturing, for example, and like the body. And then obviously what's technically masculine is discernment, direction, action, assertiveness, dominance, right? Those energies are technically feminine and masculine. But when it comes to things like planning a holiday, I truly believe you cannot assign that as necessarily feminine or masculine. Because if your husband sucks balls at it and he hates doing it, and then you're angry at him the whole trip because it wasn't the trip that you wanted and he doesn't know how to make an amazing trip for you, then you're not in your feminine, he's not in his masculine. There's no point in him planning the trip. You're better off doing it. Really quick, guys, if you haven't joined the New Year's Eve bundle, I would highly recommend doing so. Not only is it being recorded, now, depending when you're listening to this, it's either been recorded live in 2024 at the very end of the year on December 13th, or it is being recorded live on December 13th. It is an 80-minute live masterclass. I'm taking you through a somatic manifestation practice, as well as giving you my secrets to what makes every year for me better than the last. I developed this kind of like trick, if you will. And I developed it at the end of 2021. 22 days later, I met my now husband on that faithful chairlift in Colorado. Anyway, and I have like stuck by this practice year after year. It's not too late to join if you're listening to this in January. You can still join. We are going to be cutting it off like the ability to actually join the New Year's Eve bundle towards the end of Jan, but don't think, oh my God, because we're already in the new year, it's too late to join. No, it's never too late to start manifesting the life of your dreams. However, if you're listening to this before the end of the year, obviously do yourself a favor and get it before the end of the year, especially because there are some practices in there where I advise you to carve the time out towards the end of December and actually set that time to do some of the practices in that call again. But the things in the call, the secrets that I give you guys in this masterclass, they are not found in any other program, not inside of MMM2, not inside of her, not inside of anywhere else. So I do this on purpose so that like I'm respecting those of you that have bought other programs or that do buy other programs, and to also really keep that energy sacred of like, this is what to do at the end of the year, and then follow through with that as much as you can through the year. So everything I'm giving you is really tangible. It's action steps. It's based in what I call embodied manifestation. If you've heard me talk about that before, I actually did a recent episode where I talked about embodied manifestation in the episode too. It's not this kind of like woo-woo, fluffy, or general shit that you could just Google. We're not doing that. You guys know I don't give you that kind of stuff that you could just Google. So if you haven't already joined, make sure that you join. If you have any questions, let me know. It's only $188. It's basically a no-brainer, especially when you look at the results people gotten. And when you think about it, it's like, this is setting me up to have the best year in 2025. And it's not something that you're just doing for an hour. You are going to continue to use the masterclass and everything else in the bundle. You're going to continue to use that throughout the whole entire year. All right. I will see you guys inside the New Year's Eve bundle. Let's jump back into the episode. So it's thinking about like factoring in resentment. Like, will you resent him long term? If you're doing something, what does it actually feel like in your body? Are you in your head? Are you in your body? Does it feel amazing and magnetic to you, or does it not? And then also factoring in, of course, your strengths and weaknesses. And just remember, like, we're fluid as humans, right? In ovulation, you want to fuck him, right? You want some subdom. This is generally speaking, on your period, you're like, make love to me. You want to be the starfish. You want to be on the bottom. And I share that as an example because, especially as women, like, we change our mind all the time. We change what we want all the time. You wanting to lead in one way or do something one way in 1 week of your cycle, that's going to change the next week. So don't think, oh, because you want to plan a date and lead this week, you're being in your masculine. You're trusting your body. If that's what your body wants, give your body what it wants. All right. I'm going to wrap up the episode there because I have to get to the Christmas party. But I hope that you guys loved this. Happy, happy, happy New Year. Do not forget to join her year. You also can join the New Year's Eve bundle until the end of the month. And then that will be completely gone. So you will not be able to join it until the end of this year when we roll around to that season again. If you have any questions, I'm always here. And just remember, the podcast is now becoming once every 2 weeks. So really soak your teeth into every single episode.